Well, this morning, I had a very interesting morning with the kids in the kids' class. Um, we talked a little bit about, I just asked some questions about what they wanted out of life. And we're talking about kids ranging from 4 to 9. Is Chastity 9? Um, just kind of went around the room and asked them individually, what do you want out of life? And we asked this question several years ago, and of course we weren't near as far along as we are now in this movement with the New Covenant group. And a few years ago there was a lot of talk about God, about pleasing Him and making Him happy, and I can't say they really understood their answers when they gave them years ago. It was more like a formulated answer, something that somebody had told them, this is how you should respond, or that's how you should respond. But it was amazing to me that the response had changed so much. Most of the responses that I was getting was about their families and about having fun. I think they said, out of life we want to love our families and help take care of them if we can. We want to have fun. We want to have good jobs. We want to go to school. Just different answers. And I also brought up a question: how would you answer if someone asks you, if you go to church, or how do you guys worship God? What would your response be? And they looked kind of confused at first, and one of them spoke up and said, well, what do you mean worship? And I said, well, worship, we're required to, or in church you're required to praise, sing, and tell God how good He is, and do all these sorts of things. And I said, a good response to that would be, if someone asks you, how do you worship God? You could ask them, well, I don't know, how does your dad require you to worship Him? And one of the students said, well, my daddy doesn't make us worship Him. He just tells us what to do. But we just talked a little bit about relationship, with between child and parent, and what it meant to them. And the responses were just amazing. The fact that these kids pushed for having a real relationship with their parents, something that had to do with love, something that had to do with taking care of, with experiences, with good times. It didn't have anything to do with pressure or obligation, or I have to do this, or they make me. Of course, she did say my dad tells me what to do, but I don't know. It encouraged me for our younger generation to not have to go through the things that we did and that you guys did, growing up, being fearful of your parents, being fearful of God and what He stands for, just totally not understanding what's going on. But these kids have a much better understanding of who God is and what relationship is than most adults do today. And they definitely have a better view of what you can go down to your local church on the corner and get of who God is and what relationship is supposed to be. And
well, I remember when you had first posed the question about worship, one of the older students, I think she's 9, her response before you even helped with, understanding, her response was, we don't have to worship God. And I remember just clapping, like that's the best answer you could give, let's move on, so yeah, it was pretty impressive to hear that.
I made an example out of my son. I called him up to the front and told him, I said, okay, get down on your hands and knees, put your face to the ground, and tell me how good I am. Tell me that I'm awesome. And as a matter of fact, why don't you write a song about me and sing it to me about how great I am? And all the kids were laughing, and they were like, That's not a good daddy. That's not what a good dad does.
Yeah.
And my question is, why can't grown-ups see that? I mean, what dad in their right mind would actually require that of their children? At what point does it become all about them instead of all about us or all about God? Um, I don't know. I just bring that up to say how thankful I am to be in this process and to give my kids a fighting chance at being who they want to be, and not who I require them to be, or what religion requires them to be. They've just got such a better chance at succeeding in life and enjoying life. I'm experiencing enjoyment that I've never experienced before. So,
Well, we have a show on the New Covenant group, the network, whatever we call it. The show is called Inspiring Honesty. And one of the things Dr. Jones says on a regular basis is this is the place for intellectual honesty, scriptural honesty, spiritual honesty. And I think one of the most difficult things any of us, for that matter, has to do is to be honest, especially if we've lived a life of pretense. And whether intentional or unintentional, I think a lot of times it's unintentional. And I know I can say that for myself, for the past 30 years, 35 years, however long, doesn't really matter. Fortunately, the last few have been a little better, a lot better, really. But there was probably a 30-year stretch there that my goal in life, my desire, was to, quote, please God, to follow him, to understand him, to know him, and according to what I would read in here, to be like him. That was the goal, transformed into his likeness and this sort of thing. And for a long time, I thought I was doing a good job at that. He's very in opposition and juxtaposition to what we heard this morning, the description of what love is, not self-seeking. Yet this God that I was serving was very self-seeking. It was his way or the highway. It's thy will, not mine. And he demanded complete obedience. And that's why supposedly Jesus had to come. He was the perfectly obedient one, and he died, and now he's in us, and his obedience gets us by until we can come into complete compliance with his so demanding, self-seeking will. And of course, to come to these conclusions, we have to bypass the true nature of love itself. But that's the God that had been formulated in my mind. And in all honesty, I was doing a good job of transforming into that image. And that's what you're in reference to. And thank God, thank God himself, that your children won't have to experience a lot of what you did. And having someone being like that God and demanding, complete obedience, I felt like that was my job. That was, in order to be like God, I had to be that way. And like I said, I did a good job of that. And it's fairly simple. You just tell your kids, do what I say. And that's what's required of you. But like I say, in complete transition, in complete opposition to that, actually, we can encourage now. We can encourage our children to be who they are. And my wife and I were having a discussion about that on the way up here. Just talking about, who are we really? And we never were meant to be these people that are self-seeking are demanding and impatient. You know, I demand you to be obedient, and I demand it now. Quite to the contrary, we're given the opportunity to grow and to mature at a pace that is not pressured. We're not being pushed into someone who we never were meant to be. We're allowed the liberty to be who we really are and to understand the nature of who we really are. And it really is, you know, to see that. This is what I like about what we're seeing in the New Covenant group. We're seeing people that don't even necessarily believe there is a God, and yet they have more of his characteristics, or at least what we've come to discover, the characteristics of love, than a lot of folks who claim there is a God and say they believe in him. But it's because this character is free within them to express itself. And you'll find kindness, you'll find gentleness, you'll find patience. And so where's it coming from would be the question. And the answer, I believe, is love itself, the very character of God. But that's a well-kept secret there, I think. And that brings up what I wanted to talk about a little bit, and give somebody a moment to
here. Brace yourselves.
We've been given our moment. Speak up. Miss out.
Well, I just have a little short story I want to tell.
Okay. Have at it.
You ready? Okay.
Go for it. We'll interrupt.
Okay.
How's that?
Well, I don't know if y'all have heard this story or how many people have heard it. I like it. I think it's a good one. There was a circus had come to town, and the ringmaster was there, and some guy came in and said, "I want to join your circus." And he said, "Okay, what do you do?" Well, he had a case under his arm, and he said, "I'll show you." And he opened up the case and pulled some wings out and put them on. And he proceeded to climb to the top of this very huge tent that had been set up. And when he got to the very tip top, he jumped, or actually he dived right straight down. And just before he hit the floor, he spread his wings and took off sailing. And I mean, he did flips and just you name it, just flew around for several minutes and then come down and landed right in front of the ringmaster. The ringmaster looked at him unimpressed and said, "That's all you do? Bird imitations?" Anybody ever heard that before?
No.
Yes. No.
Actually, I stole it from the old TV series MASH.
Yeah.
And you're probably wondering, why would I want to tell that story? There's actually a reason.
The point.
We're still listening.
Oh, good. Thank you. You're such a good audience. Okay. Well, we've spent a lot of time and effort, tons of money, and I'm talking about, how do I say this? We who call ourselves Christians, to put it in better terms, followers of Christ. You know, there's a large number of people in this world that consider themselves to be followers of Christ. Most of them, in all honesty, fit into the category of Catholic or Protestant. And they follow a certain set of ideas that have been handed down to them for a number of centuries. And what should really be the bottom line? Should it be, and really, I want to keep it real simple. Let's just place it in two different categories. Should the bottom line be what a person believes or what their life is about? What are their actions? What is it that they do just as a result of following Christ? And I really think that that's the key to where it is mostly missed. I think that the premium has been put on what a person believes. And, the evidence is in the response that is given when a person doesn't fit into that same category of beliefism. And this is an area that I think a lot of people might actually be unfamiliar with, because unless you've been involved in church, and to a fairly significant degree, a person may not even know what I'm talking about. Of course, I think atheists do. I think, all of Christianity basically has put them into the hell category. You got a file system, and, if you believe, you go to heaven. I mean, that's the starting point, at least. If you don't, you go to hell. And it's that simple, I think, for most. And some give a little bit, maybe more category. There is a possibility maybe one of these atheists can repent and start believing and make heaven. But once again, it all fits in the category of believing. It doesn't really matter what the response is. And I know there's been a lot of conversation about this in the recent weeks in the New Covenant group, talking about Matthew. I think it's Matthew chapter 25, talking about the sheep and goats, what people do. And really, if it's not all about believing, then what about these fantastic things that people do that possibly even go unnoticed? I mean, how many people are affected, or how many people, how do I say it? Affect, I guess it would be the better way to put it. How do we affect the world around us? And if you look at the very life of Jesus, that's what you see. He didn't talk about what he believed. I believe this to be true. I believe that to be true. And you need to believe like I do. His life was all about a demonstration of who he is. And he demonstrated who he is by what he did. And while in most people, I don't know that we'd find anybody that would disagree, at least that this was a good man. And most would say probably the best that ever lived. I mean, obviously he lived in human form, whether we can say he was actually God or not. We know that he was here in human form. And the very things that he did were some of the most loving, the kindest things that were ever done. And as far as what he taught, he did everything that he taught. And so I guess my point is, that should be the issue. And, I did want to talk a little bit about the New Covenant group, Texas.
Well, you reminded me of something there that actually happened last night. I had to work. I had to close down the store last night. And for those viewing that don't know, I work at a restaurant. I manage a restaurant. And
tamales. It's good food.
Anyway, one of my servers had become disgruntled. Felt that she was being treated very unfairly, doing most of the work and so on. And she decided to let me know in a very rude manner. Used a few choice words and just kind of went off on me there for a few minutes. And I had every right as an employer to either reprimand her, send her home, or even fire her for her insubordination. But instead, I let her go on her little rant, and then I picked up a broom and started sweeping, and had swept half of what she was supposed to. Then I went and closed down the bar and straightened it up and stocked, and I just went to work with her and helped her finish her duties. And took about 10 or 15 minutes, and by the end of it, she felt terrible for what she had done. and came to me and apologized and was appreciating me for letting her get away with that, as if she knew I crossed the line there. And I don't know, I feel like that's how we should be in our, if you want to call it a Christian walk. I mean, I know I was raised teaching that God would be the one to pop us upside the head or thump us into hell or something for the insubordination. But instead, I just decided, well, I'll just, apparently something has ticked her off, and I'm not going to let this ruin some sort of work relationship that we have. I'm just going to show her that this really isn't that difficult, and that if she would have just said, hey, can you help? I feel like I've got a big workload. That's all it would have taken. And so those are the steps that I took. And I don't know, that just, what you were saying just reminded me of that. What do we do? Well, that's what we do. We work. We treat people with respect, even when we're disrespected. It just.
Well, when we were kids, we were always told, do what I say, not what I do. Well, what kind of a deal is that? Because kids look at what you do and they're going to do what you're doing. And, we need to be mindful of this sort of thing. When Jesus came, that's what he did. He didn't say, do what I'm saying, but he showed us with his life how to love. And what a fantastic example he set down for us to not only walk in ourselves, but to pass on. It just speaks volumes to show love, to hug, to do a kind deed rather than say anything.
All right.
Because all eyes are on us, and they're watching more so than listening.
Yeah.
I think it's a good general rule, whether it came from God or not, do unto others as you would want them to do to you. I think that, I mean, it's a great template for a successful life.
Yeah.
It works out for the better of all, when we can treat people with respect and show them some appreciation, and it usually is reciprocated. So
Yeah, I want to steal a quote from something that was written, and I hope this person doesn't mind, but they said that here at NCG Studios, our goal is to seek truth. The emphasis, and I'm not quoting it exactly, but the emphasis isn't on, or it's not as important as, is there a God or is there not? Who is he? How is he? But the focus is more on truth. I mean, if our focus becomes on if our focus is on a set rule or a set way to be or a set mold, then we're going in the wrong direction.
then you're not really seeking truth.
Right.
If you're going
seeking
in a mold.
someone's idea of what truth is. But our purpose here and our purpose in getting everyone involved, and I think that's the biggest push for getting atheists involved, is because we want truth. They have so much to offer, and I even feel bad about the labeling theists and atheists as if we're separate groups. But I know in our thinking we are. But I know that when I said atheist 3 or 4 years ago, I was talking about somebody. I was talking about somebody who I thought was a terrible person. Not a terrible person, but with terrible ideas. And now I'm coming to realize that their ideas are, in a lot of areas, are much better than ours.
I'm trying to demonstrate something here. I think this is one of the biggest difference right here. This has been our book for everything, and it just doesn't have everything. It's got some good things in it. Mostly, what Jesus brought to the table, and those who really understood, what he was about and what he promoted. But, too many of us, and too much of the time, this has been elevated to the life's book. I mean, everything that we need to know is right here. And if that were the case, then we would not have anything to cure diseases. We would not understand the way things work. We wouldn't have telephones. We wouldn't have electricity. And these contributions have probably come from people who, or have come from people who've gone beyond this book. And, because you don't find those things in here. And I can sit here and say, I'm one who appreciates all these things. And whoever they came from, I'll never forget. I don't know how many people would be familiar with a man called Dr. Duke, but he was a fairly famous physician from the University of Houston, Herman system down there. And when a dear friend of ours was in a bad accident, they flew him, life flighted him or whatever, flew him into Jasper to take a look, and he ended up taking the patient back to Houston. But in the meantime, I got to meet him firsthand, and I was very religious at the time, and this was a very rude man. He was loud, he was obnoxious, and he didn't mind using all kinds of colorful words. He didn't care who heard. And I have much more appreciation for that man now, because he knew what he was talking about, number one. And number two, he was such a benefit to so many different people. And, that's what counts. What do I have to contribute? What do I have that will benefit others? And am I willing to share it? I think if we really understand who Jesus is, what he was about, and I should say what he is about, and the very thing that Paul promoted, it had everything to do with those simple words that Jesus said: love one another. And he even qualified it. He said, as I have loved you, love one another. And he really didn't stop there because, as we can always say, that's easy to say. But what about doing it? Love your enemies. Who really does that? Well, there have been those who have. It's not like, it hasn't ever been done. But more than that, the ability is there. The love is there. That's all we need to know. And should I go back to the 60s?
Oh, geez.
Oh, I won't go there. But there was a movement back then, and the idea was there. But the thing is, the real source, what is the source of it? Is it really in us all? And I would say now, yes, it is. And that was really the conversation we were having on the way up here. Who are we really as individuals? We are those that love. All of us. I'm not talking about just the New Covenant group. Every human being. We really are people who have that which we need in order to really love one another. And I mean in the way that we have patterned out here, we're those who can be patient with one another, who can actually get to where we keep no record of wrongs. I'm not saying we're all there by any means, but we each have that within us. And if we can recognize that, not only about ourselves, but about one another. And I like something Dr. Jones said after the teaching this morning, actually on Skype. And when you talk about, and this was the point he made, when you talk about an individual loving like this, such as Jesus himself, I mean, what a lonely life. Who did he have that he could really sit down and just open up to and have this one-on-one fellowship and relate on the things that he enjoyed and understood? I mean, the people that he was among were so caught up in something that was so anti-love, so anti the character of God. And that was what he confronted. But if you look at it from an individual standpoint like that, it seems insurmountable. It's impossible. Where can you go with it? but it takes people coming together and demonstrating this, getting involved in this, just allowing it to flow. I like your song, you know. It's all about love, you know. You just got to yield and let it flow. It's there. It really is. I mean, those are simple words, but they say so much because, and this is back in line with what I wanted to talk about. You know, what not only would love do, but what would we do? You know, and what she did was just write down a simple song. It's beautiful. It makes a wonderful point. Just got to yield, let it flow. We resist that. We all do. You know, well, you know, I have a right to be mad at them. They did this or that. Is that really, in the depths of your being, is that what you want to be? You know, we watched a movie last night, and I loved the point it made. It made this one simple point. When you really love someone, and I may not say this right if I don't, help me out. Where do you come to that point where you call it quits? Something along that line.
When is it enough?
Yeah, when is enough enough? And at the end, the woman asks the man that, and she had been questioned, and she didn't give the right answer. And she had accused him of not being a sensitive man, not being in touch with, you know, how to love. And he just looked right at her and said, never. When is enough enough? You know, according to, if we read the tail end of what we read about love in here, it says it never fails. It doesn't run out. That's the one thing that doesn't come to an end. And so, why not just yield? Why not just let it flow?
Well,
Strap on your wings and fly down. I don't know how that blended in earlier.
Hey, I think you're getting it now. You know, that's my point is, I'm glad you brought that up.
Oh, shoot. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
The point is, we do these fantastic things, and we're so programmed to the contrary that we don't even notice. You know, how wonderful is it to have a family that just comes together and just enjoys each other? That don't really happen that much these days. And I love the Sunday mornings when we get together and the grandkids gather around me, and they're just so free to this morning I had to go behind our building here through the weeds, and I had those hitchhikers stickers on my pants, and they take forever to get off. And I was just swarmed with kids just pulling them off for me. And it's fun, you know, the kids used to do it when y'all were little. But the thing is, it's helpful. And they were enjoying doing that with somebody who ran and grabbed a trash can to put them in. You know?
Yeah.
And just simple things like that that are fantastic. They're like somebody diving off, you know.
I see.
that reminded me of something.
Good thinking.
All you can do is imitate a bird.
That reminded me of something, you know, doing great things and them not being recognized. I'm sure everyone's heard of American Idol. We saw a post on Facebook from a
friend.
He is a friend, but I don't even know how it was worded. What did he say?
It said, I have no idols. And then in parentheses, it said American, Mexican, German, or any other. My God forbids it.
He was referring to American Idol, and
Yeah.
he was saying that he has no idols, no American, German.
Was he serious?
Mexican, anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
This
his
wasn't
God,
a joke.
No, it's not a joke.
This is not a joke.
Wow.
This is no joke. There are no idols. It's
His
just
God
sad that we
forbid
get
it.
so hung up
On a name. Of a
on rules. You know, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with putting somebody in the spotlight. We should do that to everybody.
Hey,
You know, you've got a talent, you've got something that you do well. Why not let it shine? Whether you call yourself an American Idol or just a person that can do something great. I mean,
since you bring that up, I thought about this when you were telling, but I didn't want to tell it right at the time because I didn't want to, you know, I mean, you're just Stephen Furlow. But let me talk about somebody that I don't know personally, but I did have an experience, a man named Carlos Santana. And most people have probably heard of him. He's been around a long time. And back in my younger days, I got to work a lot of rock concerts or different things that had to do with stage hands, did that kind of work. And Santana had performed in Odessa, where I lived at the time. And I was helping the load out. We were loading the equipment and so forth. And Carlos was on the stage signing autographs. Well, there was one of his people was driving a forklift, and obviously they were very upset about something because he was driving like a madman, and everybody was noticing and about to try to figure out what to do because somebody was going to get hurt the way he was driving that thing. And I just happened to catch Carlos. He looked up and he noticed him. So he finished that autograph and he walked to the side of the stage, and the next time that forklift came to the stage, he got on the side of it and just rode it a little bit. And the next thing you knew, this guy was okay. And I'll never forget that because I thought that was such a classy thing to do, And it worked, He didn't go holler at the guy or fire him, kind of like what you did, And you see that just, to be able to relate that to you today, this was 35
What
years
you
ago.
didn't do.
Yeah, what I didn't do. I didn't go fire myself.
Right. Well, everybody heard your story. They know what you did.
Those of you that are just joining us.
Oh, yeah, there you go. I didn't think about
I'm
that.
kidding.
But it's, well, my point, I guess, was after all these years, that still impresses me when I think about that. And here you've done it, just, what kind of impression does that make? And you weren't trying to think, oh, what can I do here to make an impression? You were just wanting to do the best thing in the situation. And I commend you for that. I think you did. I brag on you.
I wasn't.
I worship you.
I wasn't as calm as I may have seemed when I told the story. It was quite frustrating, but I stamped out the frustration of being cursed at and yelled at, and hopefully did the right thing. But.
Well, see, those things are so important. I mean, these are the real bird imitations. I mean,
Okay. But speaking of American Idol,
Oh yeah, we do have a friend
yeah.
that is in the top 10. Cree Harrison.
top 20.
Top 20, top 10 girls, top 10 females, but of course there's 10 guys. But she's a great person. If anybody deserves something good in her life, it would be her. So if anybody is a fan of American Idol, vote for Cree Harrison.
Yeah.
So it would be awesome to see her win.
Yeah.
But we are coming to the close. We got a few minutes, so without getting into anything major, does anybody have any closing statements?
Well, back to what I was talking about, this group of people here, and I'm sure I don't brag enough. We've been together for quite a few years now. Been involved with Dr. Jones for over 20 years, and we're not near as big as we'd like to be. We'd love to see more people involved, but there's a faithfulness that has been ongoing and continues. And, for a bunch of religious folks, for a bunch of Bible thumpers, I doubt that there's one in the group that's of any age that at one time didn't consider this to be the Word of God, beginning to end, infallible. And we've gone from that to a much better understanding.
Well, that kind of brings up the point that I was making in bringing up the whole American Idol thing. This person claimed to not have any idols because his God requires him not to,
Mm-hmm.
but they idolize the Bible. I mean, that's their idol. That's what they worship.
So this was a quote-unquote Christian?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. because anymore I get the gods mixed up. I'm not sure which god's requiring what these days.
Yes, Christian. But I mean, it's just it's funny that we can't look beyond that word idol. I don't think that even the name American Idol people are wanting you to bow down and worship to whoever gets proclaimed the next American Idol. People may, I mean, people go crazy over celebrities, but that's not the point.
Right.
But it's humorous and frustrating at the same time that people get so hung up they can't even watch a show because of the term idol that's in it, and they can't see that it has become and still is their idol.
Yeah.
You know, they
Absolutely.
worship every word in there, and they don't even understand what any of it's about.
And I think really, in all honesty, you'd be hard pressed to find anybody that's read the whole thing. I've read it a number of times, unfortunately, and I don't say that with shame. It's not the best of reading, especially there's lots of it I don't recommend to anybody. But when you're trained, when in your mind and you're thinking that that's all the Word of God, you just accept even all those listing of names to have some sort of purpose, in meaning in my life today. After all, it's God's Word. Matter of fact, most people know, or the ones that know me well, know that I thought about naming one of my children Dodo Futt, but I thought that. Those are Bible names. Look them up.
Glad I didn't get that.
Well, I never really was serious about that, but it was fun even at the time. It's more fun now. You want to name your kids Bible names? There's a couple for you.
I'm kind of glad we're putting it down just because I never could get into it anyways. I mean, I clung to what I did read.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It was confusing, even as just a regular reader.
Right.
So some people won't admit that, though.
Well, a lot of people will say, "Oh, it's the these and the thous." That's some of the simpler stuff. and the newer versions changed it to I and you. But there's a lot of confusion in there.
Mm-hmm.
You can't come up with a rational God that is in this book from beginning to end.
Right.
Well, that pretty much does it for our time. I'm going to send a shout out to Charles from Joey. So I was requested to do that. So hello, Charles.
All right. I like this new person that we have on the team called Intern. It was nice to meet him today.
Yeah, we met Intern. So that was nice and much appreciated all the work that you guys do there in Florida to make this happen. So anyway, we appreciate everyone tuning in, and stay tuned. Many more shows to come, and
absolutely
much greater. So stay tuned, and we'll see you guys again next week.
Bye.